What's going on, my people? I'm going to go ahead and let you know right now that though we are going to talk about Redfall, obviously, this is not going to be just about Redfall because, hey, let's be perfectly honest here. The problem with these games coming out incomplete, just coming out in a state of trash, actually, because I don't want to say that Redfall is trash because Redfall actually is not that bad of a game. Now, allow me to explain why I say it's not that bad of a game. The thing that makes Redfall seem like it's a bad game was because of all of the hype around it. It was sold in marketing as a game that was going to be a AAA banger. They did all this thing where they invited all of these gamers or YouTubers that everyone respects out to play the game. They obviously set the game up so that those gamers or those YouTubers who came out could only play certain sections of the game. In other words, it was tailor-made for them to come out and play. And even then, you know, some people had some questions. You know, they said that the game wasn't quite what they wanted to be at launch, but you know, people were optimistic. They were like, okay, they got time to straighten these things out. But people did notice some glitches in the game. Then not too long before the game launched, then they come out and say that the game is $70. That would lead one to believe that if you're coming out saying this game is worth $70, then you're looking at the game and you're saying it's worth $70. You're telling the public that when you looked at this game, when you guys were checking it out to see the finished product, the product that you were going to put on the market, not really finished, but finished in the sense that that's what's going to the market. You looked at that game and you said, yeah, this is easy $70. So that would also lead a lot of people to believe, well, hey, the game must be pretty good. There are some people, believe it or not, who are actually enjoying the game. They're enjoying the game for what it is. And most of those people probably have Game Pass. They probably didn't pay for it. If this game would have launched, let's back up a little. Let's go back to the marketing. Let's say they marketed this game for what it was. Basically telling people it's a nice game, but look, don't expect, you know, Halo single player. And I point, you know, notice I did say single player because I know that the multiplayer sucked, but I'm not a big multiplayer guy. So, you know, I don't know anything about that. I did play it a little bit, but that was early on. I did enjoy what I played, but I'm not a big multiplayer guy. Single player, Halo is awesome. So they could have come out and just said, hey, you know, look, this is going to be a pretty good game, and market it more as a AA game. There's some great AA games out there. There's nothing wrong with that. And then when you price it, to me, a good price for this game will be anywhere from $25 to $35. If that game would have been marketed as a AA type of game and the price would have been $25 to $35, we would not be hearing all of the justifiable noise that we're hearing surrounding Redfall. So I'm going to kind of get off of Redfall for a minute. We'll come back to it. Also, I want to let people know that I'm going to say some things about Phil Spencer that would lead supercharged fanboys to believe that I don't like Phil Spencer. That's not true. I do not think Phil Spencer should be fired. I like Phil Spencer as far as, I don't know him personally, but I you know, there are people who have met him in the industry. They all say he's a nice guy. Seems like a nice guy. Seems like he'd be, you know, a great guy to sit down and have a chat with, a couple of beers with, or a couple of drinks or whatever. So this is the things that I'm going to say about Phil Spencer. The things that, first of all, I disagree with. Second of all, there's an issue where I think he's being dishonest. But I'm going to justify, well, I'm not going to justify it, but I'm going to explain why I think he's being dishonest. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what that issue is right now. That issue is that he claimed in his interview on Kinda Funny, when they looked at the game and they were going through quality control, they thought the game would be, you know, received better. I forgot his exact words, but he actually, you know, he spoke as if they thought, as a collective group, looking at the game, they actually thought that the reception would be a lot better than it was. And I have to call BS on that because, first of all, Phil Spencer's a gamer, and there probably were other people in the room who were also gamers. And with the things that's wrong with this game, you're not going to tell me you didn't notice it. You're not going to tell me you thought that people weren't going to raise hell about it. I mean, anytime you've got a game where you're supposed to be fighting vampires and you can stand next to the enemies who are supposed to be trying to kill you, and they just sit there and they don't kill you. All of these glitches that's in the game, characters glitching out, You're not going to tell me when you see that you think this game is going to be received. I mean, this game has a ton of glitches. So there's just no, I just simply don't believe it. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible that they really were totally oblivious to the fact that people were going to think that the game was trash, especially since you're selling the game for $70. Even people who aren't buying the game still are going to look at it like, yeah, I'm playing the game through Game Pass, so I didn't pay $70, but wow, $70, really? Like, I didn't pay for it. I still can't get the fact that you wanted to charge $70 for the game out of my mind. This is not about disliking Phil Spencer. Again, I do not think Phil Spencer should be fired. I think that's ridiculous. Phil Spencer has done a lot of great things for Xbox, to the point where I'm not even going to cover those things. What I will do is I'll put some links down in the bottom so you can read for yourself. I'll even copy and paste some of the quotations from the link that I put in the bottom, and then you can research it for yourself. At this point, we all already know what Phil Spencer has done for Xbox. Phil Spencer is the only reason why a lot of people who hate Xbox are so energized right now. They've gone from being, they're kind of laughing at Xbox to kind of hating, I mean, really hating Xbox. You don't hear anybody saying, hey, all I want is for Xbox to compete. When's the last time you heard someone who hates Xbox say that? That alone, just by itself, and it's not his only achievement, but that in itself, the fact that that particular line of words have basically been put to bed, it alone lets you know that he has achieved a lot. So I'm saying all this because I want people to know that as I talk about these things, these disagreements that I have with Phil Spencer, it has nothing to do with hating Phil Spencer or wanting to see Phil Spencer get fired. Phil Spencer should stay. Now, there's some things, I think Phil, like, for example, he said some games they're going to be 60. The way he said it was like, we just have to accept that. And being a person who played sports, and if you played sports, or if you've been in anything that was involving any type of competition, one of the things that you've got to do if you want to be the best of the best in whatever you're competing in is you have to expect the things you expect out of yourself has to be extremely high. Okay, if it is a reality that we're going to get some games that rate 60 or whatever, or rate a 2 out of 5 or a 4 out of 10 or whatever, okay, if that's a reality in the business, that's fine. It's just like if you're playing for the NFL. There's some people who are just happy to be in the NFL. There's some teams that play like they're just happy to be in the NFL. But there's some teams where you go in and there have been many interviews of various NFL players who have went from one team to another and talked about how the culture is just different. The mentality is different towards the game. The expectation is different. You're not going to find many teams in any sport who says, well, hey, if we just win a few games, man, that's great. If all we do is have a great season, man, that's good enough. You're not going to find too many of those teams winning championships. If you have a team who thinks that getting to the playoffs is something to celebrate as though you have won the championship or the Super Bowl, you're not going to have many of those teams winning Super Bowls. Teams who win Super Bowls, especially teams who win Super Bowls repeatedly, that is their goal. They want to win, and some of them even want a dynasty. These are the people who, if they're lucky enough to get on teams of people who think that they're like-minded, like them, as individual players and coaches and all the other pieces that come together to put the organization together. These are going to be the organizations who are going to succeed, not teams who say, hey, you know what? As long as you go out on the field, man, and leave it all out on the field, and as long as you try your best, and it's all good. It's okay. You're going to lose some games. You can't look at it like that. You get that game out there that rates a 4 out of 10. You can't look at it like, well, that's just the business. And that's what Phil Spencer said. It's a part of the business. Well, yeah, it is a part of the business, but you can't go around, saying things to make it sound like you just accept that, because the optics of that sort of attitude just isn't good. Especially right now, because what Phil has to realize is that there's a question as to whether or not Game Pass or just Xbox period is going to be the Walmart of gaming. In other words, you can go get a whole lot of stuff for a low cost, but the quality of it, there's some questions. You get some stuff every now and then that's pretty good. And then also there's this thing where people are noticing that, okay, look, the things that are awesome in Game Pass, those are third-party games. Okay, they're awesome. We don't deny that, but they're third-party games. What happens when we take your games and we narrow everything down to your games? What games are great games? Now, Xbox has a lot of great games that they make. You know, the Halo, the Forza, the Gears of War, on and on. I mean, these games are great. And one of the things they don't do, they don't remake games. They don't come out with new iterations of the exact same game. In other words, they come out with a Gears of War, they might add some DLC or something like that, or they might tune up the graphics, and I'm not saying that they're never gonna do it, but one of the things Xbox doesn't do that PlayStation does do is PlayStation will make as much money as they can off of a game. They'll keep remaking a game, the exact same games. Another thing that Xbox doesn't do is Xbox doesn't money hack games because they don't want to money hack games. And that's another thing I disagree with Phil on. I think that, I'm not saying that you have to make that your main business model. What I'm saying is until you get everything on proper footing, money hack some games. Even if you're only going to money hack the game in the sense that, okay, it comes to all other platforms, put it in Game Pass first, or it comes to Game Pass 2 weeks earlier, or something like that. But you know, that's not what they want to do. I'm not in charge of Xbox. There's nothing I can do about that. But that's Phil's thing, and it's something that I disagree with. Like I said, I think Phil's a great guy. I just disagree with him on a couple of things. About his comment regarding not knowing that the game was going to be negatively received, or not having any idea of it. He claimed that when they sat down and looked at it, you know, they didn't see a perfect game, but they thought they thought it was a game that would be okay. He thought that the review of the game, he thought that it would get higher scores. He was talking like maybe he thought it would get in the 70s or mid 70s or something like that. I think that is being completely dishonest, but I think he may have a good reason for it. And I don't know exactly what that reason is. I'll just sum it up by saying, I believe the reason that they put that game out on the market, knowing that it was more than much less than subpar, actually. I think the reason that they did it had something to do with some sort of business decision. It was purely business. Well, look, let's be honest. Either you're lying or you're not lying. He feels like he had to be untruthful about it, because if he told fans the truth, they probably would not react to it well. Let's be honest. Whatever that reason is, if that's the reason, because I could be wrong, but I don't believe that I am. I think it was purely a business decision to release it, because they had enough awareness about the problems with the game to make sure that the YouTubers who went down there to play it, like Incognito of the Iron Lords, Mr. Matty Plays, and a few others, they had enough awareness about the issues with the game to make sure that those players did not encounter them. So they must have known. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's get to another subject that I want to discuss, which is really very important to me. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I promote the idea of certainly not pre-ordering games. The only reason that I would justify pre-ordering a game is if the pre-order gives you some of the things that you like the figurines and things of that nature, booklets, artwork, because for many people, you know, they're collectors. That's very important to them. So when you get the game, even if there's something wrong with the game, but you got all the other things that you wanted, you pretty much got really the main thing that you wanted. Of course, you wanted the game to be good, but at least you're still left with some of the other things, the collectible items. Now that I can understand, but other than that, there's no reason to pre-order a game. I mean, yeah, they give you these little things sometimes, like extra gun or two or something like that. But look, in my humble opinion, even considering that, it's not worth pre-ordering the game if when you get the game is going to be in a horrible state. It's going to be like almost like a game in an alpha state or something. So it's just simply not worth it. There's no reason to pre-order a game. They're not going to run out, especially if you're buying digitally. They're not going to run out, and more than likely they're not going to run out even if you're going out here to buy a physical copy. So there's just no reason to pre-order a game. Number two, at least wait until the game comes out. Wait for a couple of reviews to come in, and personally, I say wait even a couple of days after that. And the reason why, you look at what's been happening lately. Like if you look at the latest Sonic game that came out, I believe it's the latest one, it came out about a year ago. It got bad reviews when it came out. There were a couple of people, well-respected reviewers, no need to name them, but I believe they honestly believed that the game wasn't good. I think they didn't like it. Well, it turns out that the user scores, the gamers, they actually liked it. So it actually turned out to be a great game. That's just an example. I mean, this happens actually more often than you may think. A game comes out, it gets pretty low reviews. First couple of reviewers say they don't like it. And then suddenly a couple of days later, for some reason, people just end up saying, hey, what are you talking about? This game is actually great. But there's also the reverse of what happens. A game comes out, and if it's a very well-connected company that made the game, it comes out, biased reviewers, usually in the mainstream media of gaming, give it these great reviews. If they like the platform that it's on, or if they like the gaming company, or they want to keep that access to that company, they want to keep access to information, they don't want that company to close them out, they give it great reviews, and they ignore all of the technical flaws, even though it's littered with it. And the excuse is, oh, they can fix that. Other than that, this is a great game, deserving of high 80s, low 90s, 4.5 out of 5. But we all know, hey, come on, really? I mean, if that would have been any other company, a company you don't too much care for, a company you're not biased for, you would have skull dragged that game. You would have skull drug it because of all the technical flaws. It's best really to wait a couple of days after the game officially launches. Again, it's not going anywhere. Now, me personally, and I don't expect everyone to ride with me on this one, I like to wait on sales. I got addicted to waiting on sales. Now, if a game comes out and it's technically great and it's a well put together game, especially if I feel like I like the game, I will buy the game brand new to give the studio kudos. Hey, great job. Wow. It's sad to say, but these days when that happens, I mean, like Dead Island 2, I didn't expect to buy that game, but I got it at a pretty good price. I heard it was $70, but I got it on Humble Bundle for under 60. Other than that, I usually like to wait on sales. And the beautiful thing about sales is that a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, really all the time that I've ever purchased one, you end up getting a much better game technically. All of the glitches have been ironed out. And then on top of that, you also end up getting all of the additional content that other people had to pay for. You'll end up getting a AAA game that came out 3-4 years ago, and you get everything with it. You get all of the clothing, the extra weapons. You get everything. You get sometimes a special type of map. You get all of the DLC included. And where everybody else had to pay $60 for the base game, now $70. And then they had to pay maybe an additional $30 or $40 after that to get the DLC and some of the other things. Here you are getting that exact same game for anywhere from $15 to $20, along with everything else that, all of the additional content, DLC, weapons, clothing, garments, and things of that nature. You're getting all that for $15 to $20. I mean, you can't beat that. These games are constantly on sale. And that's not to mention the fact that a lot of times these AAA games that come out a couple of weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, they end up dropping in price by like $10 to $15. And if you look on Humble Bundle, a lot of times you can get it cheaper than that. So I really wish people would discipline themselves. We have to take some responsibility in what's going on in the industry right now. We have to take some responsibility for it, because these people would not be releasing these games in the state that they released them if we was not purchasing it and pre-ordering it. A lot of times that may be the reason why they're going on ahead and releasing it, because especially if they got these pre-orders, you think about it, you pre-ordered a game, especially if you pre-order deluxe editions and all of that, and they say, well, it's going to come out today, for example, but then they make an announcement saying that they're going to have to delay it by 3 months. Well, a lot of these people out here they've got these deluxe editions that's costing like anywhere from $100 to $400. And think about that. You got a customer that paid that kind of money for a deluxe edition. Now you telling them you're going to have to delay the game. So we have to take some responsibility for it. And I don't know, man, I'm so tired of beating this drum, but every time I turn around, this happens. A game comes out, it's really glitched. It's a horrible game because you can't play it because it's technically flawed. And I'm hearing all these people complaining. I'm torn because I am disappointed that these games keep coming out like that. But then at the same time, I hear all this crying from the public, from the gaming public. And at the same time, I get irritated with that because I'm like, you guys keep going out buying these games. And so, I mean, what do you expect? They're going to keep doing this. They're not going to stop. It's the same playbook. They put it out. They're starting to sound like politicians now with their platitudes and their talking points. All of the speeches are starting to sound, the apology speeches are starting to sound the same now. So I encourage you guys to please practice some discipline. You don't have to take it as far as me, but just at least, hey, look, baby steps. Just wait for the game to come out. Wait for it to at least launch. Even if you're not going to wait a couple of days after that, stop pre-ordering. Like I said, unless you just, you see the items that come with the game and you really want it, you really love it, you really can't wait to display it. You've got this man cave with your items everywhere. I have a few things, but not a lot. But yeah, some people are just really into that. Every time a collector's edition comes out, they have to buy it. I can see that but that's not the majority of people, though. That's not the majority of people. Most of these pre-orders are just pre-orders. People just pre-ordering the game, and maybe they're getting a few little worthless trinkets. A jacket, a sword, a gun, a pistol, a silencer. Come on, man. We have to send a message to these people. And look, I'm just venting. I know people are going to keep doing what they're going to do, but just know this. If you're going to keep doing it, if you're going to keep going out buying these games, they're going to keep doing exactly what they're doing. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. When you think about how long they've been doing this, I mean, look at No Man's Sky. Everybody talks about Cyberpunk. Everyone should have learned from No Man's Sky, but they didn't. Companies are still doing this. And they know they're putting these games out that suck technically. They know it. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here because this video has really gone on a little bit longer than I wanted to. Man, this always happens when I go unscripted, which is one of the reasons why I don't like to go unscripted. I like to keep my videos short. But anyway, guys, hey, look, consider everything that I said. If you like the video, give it a like. Want to follow my other videos that's coming up in the future, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you get some time, share the video. Having a real rough time with the YouTube algorithm right now and a few other issues as well. But anyway, guys, enjoy your weekend and stay safe.